Press conference will take the place of the community meeting that was scheduled to be tonight at 5 p.m. at Montecito Union School. Just to be clear, that meeting is canceled. Our next scheduled community informational meeting will take place on Wednesday, March 14th at 5 p.m. at Montecito Union School. Our emergency response team has been diligently following the approaching storm to determine its risk to our community. They have determined that it has the potential to bring rain that is significant enough to cause possible flooding and debris flows in watersheds affected by wildfire. Now, I just want to say both about today, tomorrow, and previous and future events. Our emergency personnel are using the best information possible to make these decisions. It's possible for the storm comes in exactly as predicted. It's possible that the storm comes in stronger, that's worse than predicted, and it's possible for the storm to come in weaker than predicted. But it is not our job to gamble with people's lives. It is our job to give the public the best information that we can and to ask you to be ready, to continue to be ready. They have also worked hard to set up an evacuation system that can give plenty of notice for everyone to be prepared for this storm. Having to go through this experience is very scary, and I understand and feel those feelings as someone that is in the red zone with a family and a little child. I can assure you that there is no need to panic. We all collectively learned a lot from our previous experience, and we'll execute the plan and get through this as a community. Now I just want to introduce the person that we really have all been waiting for here today. With more specifics on what we are preparing for, I'm going to turn it over to Eric Bolt of the National Weather Service. Eric?
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Eric Bolt. I'm the Warning Coordination Meteorologist for the National Weather Service in Oxnard. And I wanted to stress we do have our second storm of this winter season. But I want to make a baseball analogy since we're starting to get into baseball right now. This will be a minor league storm, not a major league storm like we saw back on January 9th. But we have to be careful because minor leaguers can also hit it out of the park sometimes. Okay, so we are expecting a storm to start to impact the area Thursday afternoon. We'll start to see a little light rain, and then intensity should pick up after midnight. So right now, our main concern is for these intensities to increase after midnight Thursday night and continue till about 6 or 7 in the morning on Friday. During that period, we should see 3, 4, 5 hours of steady rain that's moderate, briefly heavy at times. And this is our concern for any possible flows in our river systems and possible debris flows from our burn scar. Right now, our rainfall intensities look to be about 1/4 inch near the ocean and maybe increasing to 1/3 of an inch to 1/2 an inch closer to the mountaintops. So if we do see that 1/2 inch per hour rate, that could trigger debris flow. Stay in mind that 1/2 inch per hour rate is about 1/3 of what we saw back on January 9th. Not nearly as intense, but we still could see some muddy water and debris if we see that type of intensity. Once we get past the early morning of Friday, we will start to see the sun come out. We'll see improving conditions, and we should be pretty good from that point. We do expect a few more showers to develop Friday evening into Saturday, but those will not be nearly the intensity we are expecting Thursday night into Friday morning. That's all I have. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Kevin Taylor, Division Chief Operations for Montecito Fire Department, and I'm one of the Unified Incident Commanders for the local incident management team. I wanted to alert the community to what your local incident management team and fire departments are doing to prepare for this forecast storm. At 0800 hours tomorrow morning, we will activate our local incident management team to manage the resources that have been upstaffed by the local fire departments on the front country. That includes the city of Santa Barbara, Carpinteria Summerlin Fire Protection District, Santa Barbara County Fire, and Montecito Fire Department. We will additionally be reinforced by an OES water rescue team from out of the area that will arrive tomorrow morning to assist us. Our team will pre-position these resources in the South Coast so that they're prepared to respond should we have an event either to the Whittier fire burn area or the Thomas fire burn area, and they will be guided by a written incident action plan that we're putting together as we speak. So like we've asked you to prepare for these debris flow events, I wanted to assure you that your emergency responders are preparing. The best thing that you could do today, if you haven't already, is go to readysbc.org and register to receive alerts so that you're constantly updated on what's occurring. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Sheriff Bill Brown, and I'm here to talk to you about the evacuation process. In preparation for the storm activity, as you are aware, we notified people who are in the areas of the Thomas, Sherpa, or Whittier burn areas that it's very important for you to be aware of the situation and being what is asked of you, and that you follow instructions if an evacuation decision is made. Our intention is to make sure that you are prepared and that you have a plan and that you are safe. As you've heard, we have been working very closely with the National Weather Service tracking this storm, and the updated forecast has done two things. Number one, it has extended the time estimate that the storm will make landfall from an original estimate of 9 p.m. to now it is estimated to hit at midnight. And that the intense period of the storm is predicted to be between midnight and 6 a.m. The other thing that has happened is that there's been a slight downgrade in the level of intensity of rainfall, and that intensity went from the original prediction, which was 1/3 to 2/3 of an inch per hour at the highest rate of intensity, and it has been now changed to where the high is predicted to be 1/2 inch, the high potential at 1/2 inch. Now that is right on the cusp of our decision to trigger evacuations, the 1/2 inch amount. And as a result of that, and as a result of the fact that the storm making landfall has been pushed out, our emergency group had a lengthy discussion and determined that we were comfortable with not issuing a mandatory evacuation order this evening, but rather waiting and getting 2 more updates from the National Weather Service to determine whether this storm either stays the same, whether it's going to intensify, or whether it's predicted to dissipate. So yesterday we issued a pre-evacuation advisory warning for residents. We issued that the day before yesterday. And yesterday evening we issued a recommended evacuation warning for people in that area. We are extending that recommended evacuation warning. So what that means is that if you live in the area that's affected, we are recommending that you take steps to evacuate, and recommended, in fact, that you do evacuate, but it is a discretionary decision on your part. And if you choose to not evacuate, we recommend that you be prepared to evacuate at a moment's notice. If you have a household that contains family members who have mobility issues, then it is important for you to evacuate those people now because of the length of time that it would take to evacuate them in the future. And also, if you have large animals, it's important that you take steps to evacuate those animals now, again, because of the amount of time that it would take. There's a very likely scenario that we will order an evacuation tomorrow morning if this storm either stays at the current predicted level, or if it is predicted to intensify. If we receive information that the storm is predicted to dissipate, we will likely continue the warning and make sure everybody's aware and not issue that mandatory evacuation order. So right now it's very important that all of you stay aware of the situation. It is changing. It is developing, as you've seen and heard. As you've been told many times, it would be very advisable for you to go to the county's website at sbcready.org and sign up for those alerts. If there is any change, we will be sending out advisories, and we will be notifying you accordingly. We understand that evacuations, even the prospect of evacuations, are troubling, and the evacuations themselves can be inconvenient, and we don't want to unnecessarily evacuate anyone. But on the same token, we don't want to not do an evacuation if we believe that there is an extreme danger. There is no predicted danger either this evening or during the day tomorrow. As you've heard, the danger period would be tomorrow from midnight onwards. And because we have that additional time, we have made this decision to not make an evacuation order this evening and to wait and see how the storm develops. One thing that I just want to say is that it's in some ways counterintuitive that we're talking about a storm and we're talking about evacuations when you look outside and you see beautiful clear blue skies and beautiful weather. But the reality is that has nothing to do with the storm that's coming. And don't be lulled into a false sense of security because the weather looks like it's fine. That's exactly how it looked during the day on January the 8th. And that evening, in the early morning hours of the next morning, is when the storm, this very intense storm hit. So that just because the skies are blue right now doesn't mean that there isn't a threat. So please remain vigilant. As always, we don't want to make you afraid. We want to make you get in a situation where you get prepared, where you prepare for yourself and your family members, and you have a plan. So at this point, there is an extension of the recommended evacuation warning, and we would advise everybody to be prepared to evacuate and to stay tuned for updated information as it comes between from now to tomorrow morning. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I am Cindy Ponce, the Santa Barbara, California Highway Patrol Captain. The 101 is currently open, and it will remain open until it is absolutely necessary to close it due to public safety. If the 101 needs to be closed, we would do so after a mandatory evacuation order has been in place and everyone has had the opportunity to evacuate. A closure would only occur just prior to the arrival of the intense portion of the storm. As you have heard from the meteorologist, the intense portion of the storm is anticipated to arrive between midnight and 6 a.m. Friday morning. If a mandatory evacuation order is given tomorrow morning, anticipate that the 101 would shut down just before midnight, give or take an hour or so, depending on the intensity of the storm. Trust me, the CHP is not in the business of shutting down freeways. So we do not take these decisions lightly, and we only would do that when it's absolutely necessary, for as long as necessary. We know that these times are a bit unsettling for everyone, and we don't take these decisions lightly. We keep public safety at the forefront of every decision that we make. So thank you for your patience. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Robert Lewin. I'm the director of the County Office of Emergency Management. I'd like to take a moment to talk about individual preparedness and family preparedness. There are a number of steps that folks should take, and they should take those steps now. One, of course, is they should go to our website, and they should make sure that they have signed up for Aware and Prepare alerts, and they should also make sure that they have looked at the interactive maps. We now have 2 interactive maps on our website. One is the map that shows the risk area, and the other one that we've added today is the area that identifies the recommended evacuation warning area. If that sometime that area is upgraded to an evacuation order, a mandatory evacuation order, that map will be changed as well. Currently, the recommended evacuation warning area is both for the areas around the Thomas fire, the Sherpa, and the Whittier fire. The Alamo fire, we of course encourage those folks that are near that burn area to make sure that they are aware of their environment, but at this time the weather prediction does not indicate a need for any level of notification for them. The type of preparedness that people have to take, of course, depends on those people. Are they folks that have family members? Are they have small children? Are there folks that need help in their household? And so based on that, you need to make sure that you are planning for your issues in your particular home. A couple of tips for everybody, make sure that your gas tanks are at least half full at all times. Keep cash available in case we lose power and ATM machines are not available. Have a suitcase or duffel bag ready so that you don't have to think about packing under stress for an evacuation order. Keep that suitcase and duffel bag handy. You can take it with you. You should always keep copies of digital photos and store them on a cloud or in a thumb drive in a safe location. Pictures of your prescriptions are good so that you could go to your pharmacy during an event and refill your prescriptions. Keep key documents handy in one place or take images of those and store them on a secure cloud. Documents such as passports, insurance papers, etc. Every member of the family should keep a list of actions and things to gather should they have to evacuate, so they don't have to think about it in those moments. Also, families should know where they're going to meet up, and they should have a place outside of the evacuation area, a contact, a family member, a friend, that all of them can reach out to state their status, that they're okay and where they're located. Good to keep your photo albums in a plastic tub that can be easily loaded into the trunk of your car and taken with you. Find a place now that is outside of the evacuation warning area or outside the risk areas where you and your family can move for up to a 2-week period in the event that we have a storm that causes that type of actions to be necessary. There's a lot more you can do. If you go to ready.gov, there's a lot of things that folks can do to prepare themselves for all emergencies. I wanted to talk a little bit about our schools for a moment here. The schools today, of course, were open, and we have been in constant contact with the school districts, both in Carpinteria and in Montecito, and that includes both the public and private schools. The schools are going to make contact with all of the families at their schools through their established communication channels, and they will provide information tonight on the status of the schools in their districts tomorrow. So the parents will hear about that information directly from the schools. The schools are each taking a course of action that is within their plans, and so they each have individual plans, and I can tell you that all of them have worked hard to make sure that the students are safe. I want to also talk for a moment about our Emergency Operations Center during this pre-storm period. We have gone to what we refer to as a Level 2 activation of our Emergency Operations Center, which is the middle level of our activation. If we do call for a mandatory evacuation order, we will go to our highest level, a Level 3, and we will fully staff. But at this time, we are in the planning mode, and we have quite a few people working in there, and we are paying close attention to what's going on, of course. We are working with first response agencies to make sure we are in complete sync on everything we're doing. The actions that have already been taken is the Red Cross has opened a access and functional need evacuation center at the Earl Warren Showgrounds, and that is at the Earl Place at the Earl Warren Showgrounds. In addition, our animal services, our county animal services, with the assistance of equine evacuation, has opened up a large animal center, evacuation center for large animals, also at Earl Warren, because we do encourage folks that have access and functional needs, as the sheriff stated, and people with large animals to take those actions now so that you do not have to take them when it could take a long time tomorrow if, in fact, an evacuation order is made. and I'll conclude with this. We are in a partnership. The community and all of us that are making these difficult decisions are in a partnership. We know that the decisions that you make as individuals and as family leaders are difficult as well. And together we will make sure that we're all doing the right things that we can to ensure the safety of our community and ensure the safety of our families. Thank you.
Thank you very much to all of our speakers and for the media for being here today. Special thank you to Joe Black, who has been with us the last several months as our interpreter. So thank you, Joe, and certainly a big thank you to Supervisor Williams for being here with us today as well. We're happy to take several questions. The question is, what is the status of mud and our debris basins? Rob Lewin.
I believe the current status of all the debris basins, were at 92% clearance on the debris basins. The only remaining debris is in the Santa Monica Basin, which is a very, very large basin. It's the largest of all of them, and that work continues. However, of course, during storms, we've asked and Army Corps of Engineers and Flood Control to make sure that they're in a safe place, first of all, and they're not in a place that be in harm's way during a storm, but also that their equipment is in a location that won't contribute to debris flows. Our channels continue to be cleaned up, and we are well ahead of schedule on clearing those channels as well. These are good. These are important because these provide the security to our community that we need in the event of a debris flow, and provide us that protection that we all want.
I have a debris question since you're up there and talking about it. I know the community has praised you guys for clearing the roads quickly and keeping the bases clean for situations like this, but a lot of people that we talked about today still have piles of debris in their front yard, big boulders. Why hasn't that been moved yet?
So the question, of course, is important to us as well. We have a lot of actions that we're working through to try to figure out how to deal with the large amount of debris on private property. That's the issue. So here's currently what we ask of the public to do. First of all, the public can now remove any debris that they would like to remove and take it to a landfill or already an established location. And of course, this is a very expensive process, we recognize. So with that, we're trying to find locations that will be both convenient and not cost prohibitive. Now, that sounds more simple than it is. It is very difficult in an area like Santa Barbara, along this part of the coast, to have something like that. We are not an area that has lots of locations for landfills. So we are doing a couple steps at this time. We're working on trying to find a local place for the debris. We're trying to find a local place for a transfer station for the debris. We're working with Ventura County to see if they have a location besides their regular landfills that would provide a location to be able to deposit the debris, maybe an old mine or something like that. We are also trying to think way out of the box on some other types of creative measures to be able to move it. One of the items like that we have is the establishment of a web exchange where people will be able to put on the web that they have available soil and rocks that is available, and if somebody is interested in that, they could then contact that person directly and make an exchange, similar to like a Craigslist sort of environment for soil and rocks, correct. We did complete 2 cleanup events. One was on a weekend, a couple of weekends ago, and then last Monday we finished it. Now, we focused on properties that were a half acre or smaller, knowing that those folks do not have a place to stage any rocks and soil. They also didn't have a location to get their contractors to be able to park on their property. So now they have that. And so that was approximately 55 or so homes that we addressed in that manner, and that was a successful program. The folks used their own labor or their own and volunteer organizations such as Habitat for Humanity, the Bucket Brigade, and others to move the debris into the street, and then the county with recovery funding from FEMA and OES, removed that soil, and that was quite a bit. And I can provide you with the numbers of trucks, but it was in the quite significant. So we continue to struggle with this issue. We want to find the right solution because we know people need to get back on their properties and be able to move back in the cases where they haven't yet.
So the bigger problem is that there just isn't a whole lot of room for this debris right now.
The issue is that the places where people can take the debris now is expensive for them, and it requires driving a long distance. So we're trying to find things that are better in that regard.
Can you talk about the hillsides and the potential for further debris flows? What's up there on the hillside that can come down?
Yes, certainly. So, while we certainly had a tremendous amount of debris come down on the 1-9 debris flow, those mountains are still loaded with additional debris. And if we have an event that is able to move that debris, it is going to come down and create a situation less, similar, or more than we experienced on the 1-9 debris flow.
What have you heard from the word or the bear people in terms of the mass that you would expect to come down if you had a half an inch an hour?
So I'm not going to be able to talk about directly about it, but I can tell you that the WERT report, I believe, got posted today on the CAL FIRE website, and the bear report is already on a site, and now we are waiting for the final report from the watershed core team. And then when all three of those reports are together, we will be posting them together on our county website so that people can analyze them.
When will you know tomorrow if you're going to pull the trigger with the mandatory evacuation? And what would be the level of rainfall that would trigger it? Last question, if everybody on that map evacuates, how many people, how many households are we talking they're going to have to move?
So you want to take that?
So, feeding the question back to you, it's a three-part question, basically. So the first one is, what level of rainfall would it take to trigger a debris flow? We have been told that that threshold is between 1/2 and 1 inch per hour or more. So the prediction as it currently stands is right at the cusp of that very bottom threshold, and that's why we have made the decision to delay the evacuation order, knowing that we can still have enough time to evacuate people and also have 2 more weather reports that will give us an update on the weather situation before tomorrow morning. In terms of the actual numbers of people, the entire Thomas burn area that you see on this map here, there are about 30,000 people that live in that area. And in terms of the evacuation, if there is to be an evacuation, the priority for the evacuation will be any residence that is adjacent to a water course. So we'll be hitting those areas that are in red first. We may not be able to get to all of the homes in those areas or to indeed all of the homes in the entire area. Just to give you an idea, during the 1-9 debris flow, we evacuated about 13,000 people. It took about 12 hours to actually do the door knock portion of that evacuation. We're going to be relying more heavily on notification and asking people to make sure that their neighbors are aware and so forth to get that out and to focus our limited resources in terms of how many people we have to knock on doors, to knocking on those doors that are in the most vulnerable areas, which are the red areas, and even within the red areas, those homes that are directly adjacent to the water courses.
Bill, what time do you expect to get those 2 additional weather briefings?
So the two briefings, one of them will be 6 p.m., I believe, this evening, and the other is 6 a.m. tomorrow. So those are the 2 times that we'll get the additional information. We'll have another meeting of the emergency work group that will occur at 8 o'clock, and following that meeting is when we'll make a decision on what to do. So the idea would be that we would have at least 12 hours to notify people of an evacuation.
So the earlier information indicated that mandatory would be effective at 9 a.m. Is that still the effective time, or do you think it would be later?
No, I think it would be later because, again, remember this 2-part change in the weather prediction. One of it was a 3-hour push to a later point of impact for the storm. So,
Does that mean it would probably be noon, or do you know what time?
Well, it could be noon, but my hope would be that we would get information out before then.
Before dark.
Yeah. I mean, we obviously want to get evacuations done during the daytime. So,
Chair, could you talk about whether this rain could help in the search for the two missing children?
you know, there's always a possibility of that in terms of what debris piles and areas are out there, to the extent that anything would get washed away that could reveal them. So that's a possibility. I'm not sure what the probability of that would be, but certainly it's within the realm of possibility.
Sheriff, can you talk a little bit about how you have talked to some of the people who have been affected? A lot of people describe this as a PTSD feeling anytime any rain comes out on the news. How do you calm those fears?
Well, as I said before, our hope is that we're not making you afraid, but that we're giving you information so that you can prepare. And you know, this is a new normal that we're all having to live with. And just as we in our area have been always subject to wildfires, to earthquakes, to tsunamis, even as potential natural disasters for our area, this mudslide phenomenon, or the debris flow phenomenon, is something that in the last 20-some years has not really been on the radar for a lot of people here, but it's been periodically something that we've had to deal with, never even close to the intensity that we dealt with it on January the 9th. But so what my message, I guess, to our community would be is that just recognize that that's part of the payment that we make for being able to live in this beautiful community, is that we're going to have to deal with this several times a year, particularly for the next 2 to 5 years, as a result of this extensively damaged watershed that is above these communities. And what that means is that you have to be prepared that you may have to evacuate several times in a year. If we do order an evacuation tomorrow, I think it's very important for people to recognize that if nothing happens, or there's only a limited amount of debris flow that causes maybe some mud flow but doesn't affect buildings or block streets and that sort of thing, that the reality is it's probable it'll only be for one night. It'll only be, so I would encourage people to contact their friends, contact their family members, or make an arrangement to where they could go to a hotel or an area, either within the area or outside the area, to be able to do that, and recognize that it's probably going to just be a one evening event if nothing happens. If something does happen and it's an extended period of time, then obviously you're going to be glad that you evacuated, and it's just the right thing to do. Our recommendation, if we believe that we are going to have a danger of a significant mud flow, would be to order an evacuation that would include the red and the yellow zones. Our actual, obviously the people that live in the red zones are in greater danger than the people that immediate danger than the people that live in the yellow zones. So the focus of our evacuation in-person notifications will be those people within the red zones, and in fact those people that are in the center of those red zones. But the message to the community will be, if there's a likelihood of a significant debris flow, it has the potential for creating a bunch of islands, essentially, and the freeway being blocked, that would, and the potential elimination or temporary elimination of utilities. So it's not somewhere that you're really going to want to be for any great length of time as well, if you can't flush the toilet, if you can't get water, if you can't turn on the electricity, and so forth. So.
Only one more question. We're about a little over time. Did Eric Bolt talk about where the rain is more likely to fall? Because Ventura County has, La Conchuga there too, and it doesn't look too good right now.
I knew you'd get me up here, Tracy. Thank you. I think, this is a storm that we are not anticipating thunderstorms, and it's all about wind-driven, topography enhanced rain. So if you go up in the mountains, you can expect heavier rain. Down here at the coast, not as heavy. That could happen anywhere in the Thomas Fire burn area, including Ventura County. And as we know, Ventura County really hasn't been tested. They haven't had the intensities like we saw back in January. So we can't predict exactly whether it'd be different, but the Thomas burn area is a hot spot for rainfall in this type of situation, as far as upslope and terrain-driven precipitation. The good news is we are not predicting thunderstorms. Those are notorious for short duration, high intensity downpours like we saw back in January that caused all of our problems in about 15 minutes or so. So we're not anticipating that, but good question.
Okay, thank you again, everybody, for being here, and everybody will be available for questions following. Thanks.